Alright, so the way I've decided to join these squares is interesting because it's flat and it's reversible. It'll look the same on both sides, which will work great for this picture because that means if you're looking at the front, you'll see Yoshi facing that way, and at the back, you'll see Yoshi facing the other way, depending on how the blanket's laid down. So it's a versatile stitch that doesn't add a lot of texture to it. It really just attaches them and keeps everything flat. I've also found that the best way to attach them, instead of doing strips or something like that, is to actually go diagonally and attach in a zigzag pattern. So I'll just be attaching these two so you can get the idea, and I'll be using a completely contrasting thread so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to pick that back out myself when I'm done and use the purple to join. You want to make sure you're using a color that matches one of the squares, one of the two sides. So here I could use purple or black, but for this one you'd want to just use black. It really doesn't make a difference which one it is. It'll look the same in the end. So we'll start. Oh, I also, since I have this pattern here, I can show you, I like to mark off when I've joined that square. So this is exactly what I've completed on my pattern for two reasons. You can count how far along you are, calculate what percentage done you are, but also so that you can count what the next row you need to attach. So my next full row here would be 4 purples and 1 black, and it just makes it easy to count that way. I happen to start here on the foot, across the middle, just because I wanted to do that red part first. It really doesn't matter where you start. After I get this whole block closed out, work all the way over, I'm going to start with just 1 square here so that I can do my zigzag and start building up in this direction and build the whole rest of the blanket out that way. Alright, so I will thread my needle. This is the same, I think it's actually an upholstery needle. It's a little bit shorter than a regular yarn needle and nice and pointy. And I always start the same direction in the bottom corner on the left one. And also take a look at your square to figure out which side's the top. The top will kind of have this raised small square. The back has a raised larger square. So it really doesn't matter, except that you want all of them to match. You wouldn't want to attach 2 like this, unless that's the pattern you're going for. On mine, I want them all to look the same, so I'll make sure I have the small square side facing up. And then I'll find in my corner, here was my last shell. Sometimes it's easier to start counting from this gap here. There's the chain 1, 2, 3 stitches. So this one is the first of my corner. I'll go underneath both strands from the bottom to the top, leaving pretty good sized tail so I can tie it off later. And then it's going to be kind of like a shoelace. You're going to do anything you do on the left side, you'll do on the right side. So again, find your first corner stitch here. So here's the chain 1, shell 1, 2, 3. Here's the first one. We'll go up through the bottom, underneath both strands. And you don't have to pull it too tight right now, because if you did, it would just pull it straight through. So it can be a little loose for the minute. Then you'll go always from the bottom to the top, under both strands. This is now the first chain of that shell, and then from the bottom to the top, under the first chain on the right, middle chain. I split the yarn a little bit there. This needle's so sharp it's hard not to, and it won't really be visible in the end, so I wouldn't spend too much time trying to get it perfect underneath those. It's under the third chain, under the third one, under the first chain 1 gap right here, under the chain one gap on this side. And then I'll go under the first of this next shell. And this is where I always take a break. This is about the right number of stitches that you can tighten it up. So after you start your first of the next shell, pinch the start here and where you finished and just pull it. Pull it pretty tight. And you'll kind of feel it straighten out. It's tempting to kind of scrunch it back down and make it even tighter and tighter, but you don't want to do that because it'll pucker it up as you over tighten it. So you want this to be tight, but the squares on top of it to not be over crimped, to just be in their natural resting state, so they could still compress a little bit. And you'll figure out that tension as you make a couple, and you see what I'm talking about when you tighten it. I could pinch here and squish it down, but I won't. I'll leave it just like that. So if you remember, you just finished going up in the first one on this side, so I'll go up in the first one on the right, up in the middle chain, middle chain. We'll go under the third one, under the third one. Now under the chain, under this chain, and under the first of this corner shell. So it's under the first of the shell, so that means time to tighten it up again. When you're close to the edge like this, you can hold your original starting point, but once you're into the middle of your blanket and you can't really pinch, from the side, you can just stick your fingers in through the holes in the blanket to pinch at that starting point. Pull it tight till it straightens out. If it doesn't really straighten, you can crimp it just a little bit, but remember, don't over crunch it. That looks pretty good. So you'll notice it's pretty well hidden. You can still see a little of it peeking out because it's, such a bright, different color. But in general, it's a pretty hidden stitch, as long as you match one of the two colors you're working with. Alright, so I just went under this one. Go under the first one on this side. Under the middle. Under the middle. Under the third one. Under the third one. Under the first chain of the corner. And under the first chain of this corner. Once you've reached the end of a side, time to tighten it up again. Pinch from where you last went. Pull it tight. To close this corner gap, if you just went on and turned the corner and went into the next chain of this corner and attached it to that one, it would leave a little hole there right in the corner. If you want that hole, go for it. But for this particular blanket, I wanted those little corner holes closed up. So what I do for that is do a little extra stitch here. It'll be, as you would expect, turn the corner, go under the second chain here, but instead of going into the second chain directly above it, actually catch a little bit of this other corner. Pull that tight. And then come around, come back up through the exact same loop you just did. And then go up vertically into that second chain. And that'll just do a nice job of closing up that gap there. So you'll continue like you just did along the other side, under the first one, under the first one, I'm gonna fast forward through this next section so because it's exactly the same as this side you just saw. Okay, so now I've just gotten to this corner. I'm gonna go under the first chain on this side and the first chain on the top side. Tighten that up. So on this one we had to do that extra corner stitch because it was an inside corner. This one, attaching the next one, is gonna be an outside corner, so you don't have to do anything. There's no hole to fill in yet. So you'll just continue exactly as the very first one we did. With this one, finding where, first make sure it's the top with the small square facing up, and then here's your chain, first shell, second shell, third shell, first chain, go up through that, and then up through the next stitch around the corner here. You can pull that kind of tight, but it doesn't have to be too tight yet because remember, when you get past your first shell, you'll tighten that up. So you would just continue on with this. I'm not going to keep going because everything I do here I'm about to pick back out, but I will show you how to tie down the end of it. So imagining you did your whole zigzag all the way up, you have everything down, you'll end with one of these tails on each side. So thread it, and then weave up through a good bit of that. Just like when you tied off the side, you don't want to pull too hard here. It would, you know, crimp it in. So make it tight but not too pinched. Split some of those yarn threads and come back down. You can come all the way back out the end. Pull that tight. And then I like to come back up one more time just to make sure it's really tight and not going to go anywhere, not going to slip out. I'm not looking forward to picking this back out because these lock really, really well. So once that's there, cut it off, and you're done. That will make a nice edge. When you're done with your entire blanket, if you want to go around the whole edge and add some more border to it, you can, or you can leave this kind of scalloped edge like that, whatever kind of look you're going for. Well, I hope this helped. Let me know if you have any questions.